It certainly seems to be the case for rock icon Brian May, who has just re-released the second of his solo albums, Another World. It's been all remastered and stuff. When we got together earlier, I asked him if it seemed like the time was right to do it now.
It did, but I'm kind of on a roll with it because I discovered that all my solo work was kind of out of print and people had no access to it. You couldn't get it on Spotify or Apple, whatever it is, YouTube or everything. So I just thought it would be a good idea to get it out there to a new generation. And my dear friends at the record company have been right behind it. And it's been quite thrilling, I must say, because it all seems very fresh and new, particularly this album, which has a lot of themes in it which seem quite relevant in this pretty awful day and age that we're in right now. Yeah, so I'm treating it as a new release, and I think if I made a new album right now, it would be a lot like this one, to be honest.
And it's interesting, isn't it, that the whole idea of remastering something, we hear that talked about so much. You're somebody who knows your way around a studio and all aspects of that. But how sort of pernickety does that process get when it comes to remastering, or is it more straightforward than I might think?
You know what, people make a lot of fuss about it, and it does help a little bit to revisit the overall kind of sound sculpting of the mix. But, I wouldn't put that down because it does help. But actually, I didn't change a note and I didn't change any of the mixes whatsoever. I just got it a little bit polished with a new bit of mastering. Yeah, as well as remastering, the fun thing was to go back into those tapes and find all the little bits that got lost along the way for various reasons, and whole tracks which just didn't make it on the album. So the extra CD, which I've called Another CD, very enterprisingly I thought, as well as Another World, has got lots of little goodies that people otherwise wouldn't have heard, quite rare little snippets and different takes, etc. It's also got some more of the hero stuff, because I started off this album thinking I would just revisit my heroes and discover how I'd been made, like Buddy Holly and Jimi Hendrix and Mott the Hoople. So a lot of that stuff is on the second CD as well.
Well, it's interesting actually, because it made me wonder whether when you do revisit something like this, and it is from a while ago, whether it is a wee bit of almost like revisiting a diary entry or something like that, takes you back to a time and a place. Absolutely,
yeah. I've been living it. I've been living that album and the thoughts that went through my head at the time. It's fascinating. And the funny thing is, it's a while ago. It's a number of years ago, but I don't feel much different. I don't feel older and wiser. I feel just about the same.
Yeah.
And the same kind of quests to find the light places and solve problems and stuff.
Yeah.
This album has a lot of pain in it and a lot of joy as well, a lot of finding the light.
Well, I was going to say, that's the thing, as you said, think plus ça change, because here we are. I mean, we can never predict anything, but I don't think any of us could have predicted quite the state of the world at the moment. And that title, Another World, title of the album, and also a beautiful heartfelt song. And it's that thing of, I mean, in terms of maybe your hopes about the world and the universe in general, how do you feel? I mean, do you think that we're on a kind of repeat? We seem to make progress and then we go back a few steps.
Yeah, it really feels to me like we've gone back to the dark ages. And I find it shocking. In fact, it stops me sleeping knowing what's happening in Ukraine. And I just find it completely impossible to commute how anyone can bring about that amount of suffering and think it's the right thing to do. And it's very much like when I was a kid, of course. I mean, if you listen to the words "to hammer to fall," I said, "We who grew up tall and proud in the shadow of the mushroom cloud." It's back to that. We're looking at nuclear warheads aimed at each other across the other side of the world, and it's a terrifying thought that everything we know can be destroyed at the touch of a button. And, it just makes nonsense of everything, all the good things that people try to do in the world. It makes me incredibly sad.
Yeah, and I mean, there are there are references to Tiananmen Square and so on.
Yes, Well, I visited China, and that's what came out of China. It's a naughty little song, really.
It is.
But it makes me feel good. And
well, that's the thing. There's a lot of light and shade in this album. I mean, there's Brian May having that's an example of a song where you're clearly having a lot of fun. And again, it's that thing of your memories of where you were at that point. But in terms of the fans, I mean, so many fans around the world, and particularly in love with your guitar and your complete mastery of that. Is there still that huge enjoyment for you and that instrument?
Yeah, there is still that. I feel like I came back to it because, cutting a very long story short, with these two solo albums, I got into singing my own stuff. I had my own band. The Brian May Band toured the world twice, once with Cozy Powell. Sadly, we lost Cozy.
Oh,
And then
amazing drummer.
it was just awful. Yeah, I mean, it's just terrible to lose him. And then once with Eric Singer and beyond. And what happened at the end of all of that was that I thought, actually, I prefer to be a guitarist. I like to be able to work with singers. Even though I enjoy singing, I don't enjoy singing a whole show every night. It's hard. And I felt like I was neglecting my guitar playing because of that. So coming back and doing this stuff, I mean, it was unpredictable. The fact that we found Paul Rodgers and went around the world with him
Yeah.
really kind of spontaneously. And then we find this gift from God called Adam Lambert, and we go around the world again and again and again.
Yeah.
So now, I mean, the joy for me is knowing he can hold that position, and I can get on with my guitar playing. I really love it, I must say.
And let's face it, you need to be an incredibly powerful singer to hold any of that and have the control of that. So it must be liberating for you just to be able to get on with what you do. And you mentioned a little bit of it. I think they're called alter ego tracks. The other tracks that are maybe you know thinking back to, as you said, your influences like Buddy Holly and so on. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, that's the way the album started, because I was a little bit kind of looking to find myself, still grieving for Freddie, I think, as Roger and I both have been all along, and John as well, but we don't see much of John, sadly. But it broke us up very badly. Not just broke the group up, it broke us as people up, I think, and we didn't know who we were for a while. So I thought I would go back and explore the beginnings of what happened to me, and made me want to be a guitarist, be a musician, whatever. So I went back to Buddy Holly and Jimi Hendrix and the Hoople, to name a few, and started to do these kind of tributes to my heroes. And it was a good starting point, and you'll hear some of that on, particularly on the second album here.
Yeah.
But it brought me to a different place, because in the end I was accepting jobs like doing a film score, doing music for a TV series, doing music for a video game, which is what gave rise to the Cyborg track, and it kind of wrenched me out of the past. So it's still in the album, this business of kind of finding myself, but these things enabled me to step into the shoes of other characters, and that's what's liberating for me. That's what's inspiring. Yeah,
and the single "On My Way Up," I mean, that is such a kind of like resilient, infectious, fun piece. Can you tell us a little bit about the background to that? Yeah, I wrote it for the TV series. The first series I wrote business for, which is very heavy and kind of laden with effort. This thing is for the second series, because they did get their second series. It was called Frank Stubbs Promotes. Featuring Timothy Spall. And I just got into the character. He's this poor guy who basically failed at everything but never gave up. So I related. I was feeling very much in his shoes. So the second one became Up. You know, they wanted something up, and on my way up, I just stepped into his shoes and thought, yes, I believe I can do this. So it's very unlike me, to be honest, but that's the great thing about, I suppose, acting, you would call it, almost, when you step into the shoes of another character. I should let people know also, as well as the album, there's also, is it called the Bry Art Collection? There's the accompanying book of artwork. Tell us a wee bit about this. Yeah, it's amazing, and this is a territory I never thought I would be in. But because of my activity on Instagram, I have a wonderful community of musicians, artists, poets, whatever. And for the first time in my life, really, I really interact with them, and I love it. And I discovered that they were making artwork for me. Some of it's pictures of me in different situations. Some of it's pictures which relate to the work I'm doing. And I suddenly realized this was incredibly significant. These people are tuned into me. They're kind of reinforcing what I do and what I search for in life. So I decided to make the book, and the book, I think, features 130 different artists, all with completely different styles, all contributing to the flow of what I'm trying to do in my life. And it gives me a chance to give them a bit of publicity. It's going to make money for my Save Me campaign to save wild animals.
And I feel very proud of it. My dear friend Sarah Rugg put it all together, created it, and she's an artist herself. She came across my launch, which was the other day in the planetarium in the Royal Observatory, Greenwich. It's been a thrill. The whole thing has been a real refreshing kind of jump for me.
Yeah. And I suppose that's a really good example of how things have changed since you started making music. It's the idea of, I mean, you always knew there were the fans out there, and clearly with Queen, mega fans. But actually to have that community now, and it's the good side of the online thing, isn't it, really, where you can interact with those people and actually with this, show off their talent too.
Absolutely. It's the good side of lockdown, really, in a sense, because I had no other means of communicating music. I couldn't go out on tour, couldn't play live. I couldn't even get to my studio to make money, to make music, to make money.
Freudian slip.
It's a funny thing. I don't really need to make money. Money I have, fame I have, but I guess I'm still looking for something. So I just love to create, and I couldn't.
Yeah.
And so I took to Instagram, started doing these things. Every night I'd go in there and play something just off the cuff. And it grew. I had somebody told me I should have a hashtag. So my hashtag was Jam with Bry. And people started to jam. They started to play along and send it back to me, sing along to it, send it back. And it developed into a thing, which I've really enjoyed very much. It's opened up a whole new world for me.
Fantastic. Just want to ask you finally, you mentioned the planetarium, so are you still keeping your eyes in the skies?
I do very much, yes. Well, since I got my doctorate, a lot of doors have opened. I got my doctorate 30 years later, as you might know. And it's been great because I can go back and spend some time in the observatories and among people to whom I relate, because part of me is very deeply immersed in astronomy and astrophysics. And I get to meet all the best astronomers and all the best astronauts and stuff and work with them, which is an amazing privilege. I get to do 3D with them. That's what I bring mainly, notably the New Horizons mission to Pluto and beyond.
Wow.
And I'm working with a team now who went to Bennu, which is a near-Earth asteroid.
Yeah.
Took loads of photographs of it, from which we were able to make lots of wonderful stereoscopic 3D pictures. And we're making the first stereoscopic atlas of an asteroid.
Wow.
It's just, I love this stuff. And I do keep busy, probably busier than I should, but it's all exciting and I feel privileged to be able to do this.
Amazing. I'm going to pass that information on to my son, who's just graduating with a master's in quantum physics. He doesn't take after me, I have to hasten to add, but I am also fairly obsessed with space and everything that's going on. So deep joy there for all of us.
Wow, quantum is very cool stuff. I wish I was more up on the quantum physics side of things. Oh, wonderful. Yeah. Give it my best.
Oh, will do. Really good to speak to you, Brian May. Best of luck with this project, with the release and the remastering and indeed the accompanying book. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Janice, and thank you for sounding like my mum and my auntie.
Oh,
because it's Pitlochry, that's our connection.
Fantastic.
And I miss it because my mum's long gone, of course. And my auntie, but I'm still in touch with my cousins.
Oh, that's good. Fab.
Thank you. God bless.
Thanks so much. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye, Janice.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, how lovely it was to speak to Brian May. Wasn't he a delight? Brian May there, and the album we're talking about, the remastered solo album Another World, is out now, available digitally on CD, vinyl and even cassette. Here's the single, On My Way Up.